Hi guys, it's pie season. There's so much fantastic fruit around at the moment that I just walk out of my house and I see blackberries, I see pears, they're all happening. So the best way to celebrate them, as far as I'm concerned, is by making a big fat fruit pie. And today we're going to be making pear and blackberry pie. And for my twist on this classic fruit pie, we're going to be cooking the pear and blackberries with bay leaves, which adds this really beautiful herbaceous richness to the mix. Okay, we're going to start by making our pastry. So I've got 350 grams of flour here, and then I've got 160 grams of chilled unsalted butter, and that's going in here. We've also got a pinch of salt in here, which is really important when you're baking. So I'm going to toss this butter into the flour and just get it coated, and then I'm going to start rubbing it in with my fingers. And you can see what I'm doing here. I'm sort of using my fingers, and it's like I'm dealing cards. I'm squeezing the butter between my fingers like that. You could do this in a food processor, but I do like to do it by hand if I've got time, just because you've got a bit more control if you're doing it by hand. And today I'm using a mix of equal parts self-raising and spelt flour. I've got some really nice organic spelt flour. And the reason I'm doing that is because I wanted to try out a new pastry. My friend told me that her granny, who's from Lancashire, always makes pastry. She's 84, she's still making pastry, and she always makes it with self-raising flour. And what that does is it gives the pastry a nice puffiness and a lightness. So I'm using that with some spelt flour because spelt is an ancient grain and it gives a slightly nutty dimension to pastry, which is really, really nice. So we've got our butter and flour rubbed in here, and I'm going to add in to this a teaspoon of vanilla essence, just for a little added flavour. And I'm just going to carefully add some ice cold water. And I don't want to really add more than 90 to 100 ml. So the trick is to just start stirring it in and see how you go. And you only really want to add enough to bring the pastry together. But it really varies according to the flour that you're using. So it's hard to give a definitive measurement. So at this point you want to get your hands in there and try and bring it all together. Scrunch it all together until you've got one lump. There we go. And then you can tip it out. Just give it a brief knead. You don't really want to knead it very much. And there we go, we've got a lovely, nice lump of pastry there. So I'm just going to now cut it in half. We're dividing it in two because we're going to have one layer on the bottom of the pie and one on the top, and we want them to be roughly the same thickness so that we get a nice even bake. So then I'm just going to press it into a disc like that, 2 discs, and then we're going to wrap them up and put them in the fridge for half an hour. The fridge is a bit of a mess actually. Now we've got our pastry in the fridge chilling, we can get on with the filling. Here are our lovely juicy blackberries. They're just going to go into a pan with a sort of tablespoon of sugar, and we're just going to cook those down. So you can see that we've just been cooking these for a few minutes and they're already releasing loads and loads of juice. And I haven't used that much sugar because they're really sweet. It's totally up to you how much you cook these blackberries, how much you want them to break down. I quite like, for this pie, I quite like to break them down into a kind of soft puree. But you could put them in like this and that would still be really nice. It just depends what kind of textures you're looking for. So at this point, it's really good to taste it and just see how sweet it is. Being careful not to burn yourself. That's really, really nice. It's really sweet. So I'm going to add a little bit of lemon juice just to peak the flavour slightly. And again, this is totally up to you how much lemon juice you want to add. Now we're going to put that to one side while we prepare the pears. We're just going to peel them and core them, and now we're just going to slice them up. So I'd like some medium-sized slices, not too thin, because we don't want the pear to disintegrate when it's cooked. So sort of this kind of size is nice. So you're still getting a nice tangible chunk of pear. And you want quite firm pears for this because they're going to be cooked twice. First with the bay and then in the pie. Now I'm going to cook the pear very lightly, just with a knob of unsalted butter and a bay leaf. And when the butter starts to foam, add your pear slices in and just coat them in the butter. I'm just going to add a little bit of nutmeg to that as well, just for a little hint of spice. And just about a tablespoon of, just about a tablespoon of Demerara sugar going in there as well. Not too much, because these fruits are all sweet because they're in season, so we don't want to mask that, we just want to bring it out ever so slightly. These have been cooking for about 5 minutes, and as you can see they've softened nicely and they're smelling honeyed and sweet. And we're going to just drain off the juice that's accumulated in the pan by straining them through a sieve. And we're just going to do the same with the blackberries as well. And then what we're going to do is just add about a teaspoon of cornflour into these juices and stir it just to thicken it, because when that cooks, when that bakes, it will make a nice thickened sauce for the fruit. So sort of heaped teaspoon of cornflour going in there. And just stir it in, just whisk it in until there's no lumps. And then what we're going to do is just toss our pear in this sauce and the blackberries and fold it all together. I've just got my pastry out the fridge, so I'm going to roll it out and assemble the pie now. I've got the oven preheating to 180. I'm just going to flour the surface quite well so that we can roll out the pastry. You want to flour your rolling pin and just push it down with your rolling pin to flatten it out. And I'm going to roll this out to about a pound coin thickness. And you want it to be bigger than your pie tin, so that it goes easily inside it and lines it. Don't worry if it cracks or anything, you can always just paste over it. So I think that's about right. And I've got my Famous Pies vintage pie tin here, which I bought in Texas. And I'm just going to grease it with a little bit of vegetable oil, just so that the pastry doesn't stick. And then I'm just going to lift the pastry up onto the rolling pin like this and bring the pie dish underneath it, and then just carefully drape it over like that so it's covering the dish, and then lift and tuck into the pie dish like this so that you're making sure that it's deep down into the pie dish so that you can get your filling in there. And then you can just go around the side and trim off any excess from underneath. So that's the bottom. And then I'm just going to make a few little air holes in the base. You could use a fork for this. And then we're going to do our top for the pie. And again, just make sure your rolling pin's nice and floured. Now, you could do a lattice work top for the pie, but I think what's quite nice is to do sort of plats instead of lattice work, because it looks really nice. So that's what I'm going to do now. And it sounds super complicated, but it's actually not that hard to achieve. And I'm just going to cut strips to plait to go across the top. So we've got 3 strips here. We're just going to press them together up here and then plait them like you're plaiting hair. I've got my filling here, and I'm just going to layer that into the pastry base. And then pour in the remaining juice. You just lay your plaits over and then press them around the edge, tuck them under, and then I'm just going to use a little bit of milk like glue going around the edge here, and I'm just going to get these strips and go around the outside just to give it a nice neat rim. So So carefully trim the excess from underneath. And then egg wash with a little bit of beaten egg. And then just to finish it, I'm going to put over some Demerara sugar just over the plats and the pastry. I'm just going to put this in the oven now for 40 to 50 minutes, and we're going to check it after 40 minutes to see how it's doing. Right, the pie's ready. Let's get it out of the oven and see how it looks. Smells really good. That's what we need on a rainy afternoon like this. And that is looking delicious. Put all that. Normally I would leave this for 10 minutes to settle down, but I'm feeling particularly peckish right now. So I'm just gonna slice into this. Something so satisfying about breaking a pie crust. I can really smell those pears. Right, there's just one thing missing here, and that's some cream. So here we go. Let's give this a whirl. The pear's got a slight bite to it, which is really nice against the softness of the blackberry. And we're getting those hints of bay leaf coming through, the nuttiness from the spelt in the pastry. It's so seasonal, so simple. You need this pie in your life, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please like it, please subscribe, leave us a comment, and we'll see you next time. And I'm a true believer that, sorry. So there you go. And this is a bit of a, shut up. Oh, this smells. Sorry. Right, I'm just going to finish this off with a nice slug of cream. Right, there's one thing that this needs, and that's a good